Here we go. It's Friday. It's Friday, people. Are you psyched? When I was growing up in Providence, the local college radio station, WBUR, used to have this thing that would go, it's Friday, people. Anyhow, glad to have you join us. As always, a little countdown as we gather. The countdown just serves as a chance for YouTube, Facebook, etc. to send out live notifications and for me to share a few casual things while we get going. So first, if you're joining us live, say hi. Who's here? Where are you tuning in from? What's happening? I'm slightly flustered because lunch ran late. I've been using my office here as our cafeteria. That way we get to experience dining together, family, my office. Thank you. We're talking hybrid church today. Excited. People joining from some of the different Facebook groups I'm connected to, some colleagues. So I'm just happy to have you here. If you're tuning in a comment, you can say where you're watching from. Before we start talking hybrid church, I want to share an invitation. One of the most important things congregations need to know how to do right now is communicate using video, not just worship services, but bringing your leadership and ministry online using simple video messages. That's important. Network echo. Thanks for the heads up, Michael. I'm not sure what's going on. I'm just going to mute for a second and then. All right, hopefully that's a little bit better. Let me do one more thing. See, by starting early, we get a tech check. Is that any better, Michael? Anyhow, hey, thanks to those watching from Corpus Christi. Anyhow, so it's so important that we can use video to show up online in people's streams, use live video like I'm live now, to share with people what's happening in congregational life, to lead spiritual practice, to start conversations. And that's what my training, Video Ministry Academy, is focused on. That starts up the next cycle. It's on-demand training with my coaching and live Q&A sessions that starts up next week. If you go to videoministryacademy.com, you can check it out. But really, it's focused on helping congregations, clergy, staff, volunteer leaders use video to engage with people, support an online path to membership and more. So if you're looking to engage with more people, promote participation in congregational life, using video to do that in our video-driven world, that'd be great training. Let me know if you have any questions. Lots of people, lots of congregations have financial troubles right now. And this is my program, and so I can do whatever I want. And what I'm doing is helping everyone who needs help, or anyone who needs help to participate financially, I'm giving scholarships. So if your congregation wants to participate, check out the page, videoministryacademy.com, and whatever you need help-wise to make it work budget-wise, just email me. We'll figure it out. All right? So we got people joining from Corpus Christi, Texas. Where else? Say where you're joining from in a comment. If you know others who would appreciate this session, and also I was live every day this week talking about different aspects of digital ministry, some other considerations as we're dealing with life online, small groups. You can share my YouTube channel with them. It's youtube.com/Peter Bowden Live. Now let's get into it. 24 seconds. What else do I want to say announcement-wise? The Peoria, okay. Nancy, welcome. Oh, Nancy, great to have you. So one of the things that's fun about doing the live sessions is I'm starting to get to know more and more people from around the globe. We have people from the UK, from Canada, internationally. So as a trainer and coach working with congregations, let me just focus here. It's just awesome to connect with all of you. And for me, I love congregational life. Lifelong Unitarian Universalist, been active as a volunteer, lay leader, and then getting into professional consulting and training. Like for as long as I've been an adult, I've been working with congregations and really helping to welcome people into our lives and the lives and hearts of our congregations. So for me, community building, small group ministry was at the heart of my work early on, working with youth, young adult ministry, and then as the digital came on, get involved in all things digital. How do we use the tools of our time to advance our mission, our goals, to be of service, to connect with people. So today, hybrid church. I'm not going to color the whole thing. Hybrid. What is hybrid church? So hybrid church or hybrid ministry is a term that people are talking right now, kind of a buzz term, that we were doing ministry primarily offline before the pandemic. Some social media things, maybe some live streams from some congregations, things to share announcements online. Pandemic hit, we had to move online completely. And now congregations are looking to, well, what about when we're trying to do things where we have people gathering online and we're trying to do things offline, right? So that's the hybrid, online and offline ministry coming together. And how do you combine the two? Now, one of the things I want to do, or the primary thing I want to do in this session, is spark your imagination. One of the things that's happened as I've started to engage with congregational leaders talking about hybrid church, hybrid ministry, is that the conversations or the leaders I'm talking to default to all right, when we get people back into the sanctuary, how do we maintain connections with those who opt to be online still? And so there are certain assumptions about what's happening in our world, where trends are, that for me are a little problematic. So I think we need to really take this time to have a reality check, to be mindful that we don't know what's happening in our world yet, and the questions still at hand in terms of health, pandemic, safety, and people's preferences now that they've had a year practically of online church, of different routines on Sundays, and just their life in general. There are a lot of uncertainties. I want to share that I was in this amazing conversation this week. There's a group that's organized a hybrid ministry tech forum, talking about all different issues related to technology and hybrid church. And the conversations, and I was the guest panelist, a lot of the conversations jump into, all right, how do we equip the sanctuary for, doing everything split? 50%, say 50% online, 50% in the sanctuary. And like some of the comments in the chat, et cetera, were like, yeah, we're seeing the end of the COVID tunnel. Like we see the light at the end of the tunnel. Friends, we're not through this yet. And we need to muster all of our creativity and imagination, I think, to figure out what's the most successful model, the best approaches, innovative, exciting, and effective to bring people together to accomplish whatever your ministry goals are for where we are at any given time. We need to be nimble, we need to be strategic, and I want you to know that this hasn't really been hitting so much the prime time news yet, but I've been following the Institute for Health Metrics. What is it? It's the IHME, the Institute for Health Metrics and Evaluation in California. They're the ones that are doing the most sophisticated modeling that's informing all the news reports we see. People are constantly referencing their modeling. Their director, Chris Murray, I've been following him closely. I watched a keynote presentation, a 45-minute keynote he gave for some organization within the last week. And they're now seeing some data that, especially not in the US, but South Africa, et cetera, where people who've had COVID aren't showing protection to some of these other strains. And so now there's very real questions on the table, and the answers aren't there yet, but this is where I think you're going to see news reporting on this increasingly over the coming weeks. There may not be such a thing as herd immunity, and we may end up, maybe, you got to listen to the doctors, I'm not a doctor, but there may be a chronic COVID condition where we're having to deal with this being endemic, always around, for years and years and years to come. Now, you have to follow public health guidelines. You have to listen to the doctors. I'm not a doctor, but as someone who's helping you with your planning and thinking things through, um, don't listen when somebody says, "Hey, we're getting vaccines and we're going to get back and we are going to be able to all be together in the sanctuary sometime soon. We got to figure out how do we deal with the few people who are still online that we want to serve." I think that's incorrect, and you really need to step back and be like, you know what, we don't know yet. So, not being able to speak to the certainties of which way it's going to go, and in that keynote that I watched, Dr. Murray was saying, it's like it could which way it's going, we're not sure, but there's starting to be more things that are looking towards this could be really endemic, and long term, we're going to be dealing with different COVID variations, and it's complicated. So, what does that mean for us? I think we have to plan our ministry such that we can fully offer for those of you who want to have now a lot of different size congregations. What size congregation are you? In a comment, feel free to say like, so many members or members and friends. What's the size of your community? Most congregations, just statistically, are under 100 members. So small is the norm. And so many congregations have a single staff person, a full-time minister. And so like I'm really worried about the congregations where they're just barely able to support their staff as they exist. So I think regardless of your congregation size, it's important that we think about how do we not think about so much how do we serve people who are online and how do we serve people who are offline and how do we bring them together in a one worship service where we're doing everything the way we've always been done it, and worship is happening on Sunday or whenever you worship, and we're kind of doing this online and offline thing. We really need to look at who are our members, who are the friends of the congregation, newcomers, those we're seeking to serve, and be in dialogue with them. And I think very creative and collaborative in terms of how do we gather? What are the ways that people want to learn, explore, be together? And the more conversations I have, and I'm starting to do more and more conversations with colleagues and professional groups, the more conversations I help facilitate and I participate in, the range of what people are looking at, it's all over the map. And so we have to be very creative. So number one objective for this session, we're gonna break out of preconceived notions of what's happening over this next year, like, oh, returning to normal. We need to start getting creative, collaborative, and really innovating. Like, how do we use the tools of our time and your staff and your community's talents and resources and your facility, if you have a building, to maximize your ministry, your impact in the world as you're interested. So have people tuning in, 80 members, 160 members, a full range. So what I want to do now is share a few ideas, thoughts around how we look at our ministry right now. I want to throw out there some ideas that I think could make some of you think like, oh, that's interesting. I hadn't thought about that. But first, I just have to add a little color here. Otherwise, people will be disappointed. First, is your congregation gathering physically in any way right now, or are you 100% online? What's your breakdown? Like if you were to say, how much is online, how much is offline? What's your reality right now? I've been 100% online with my congregational participation since March. I'm married to a minister. And when the pandemic hit, I jumped in and helped them move their services online. So doing, Zoom webinar, doing, figuring out how to weave in more media, be able to play video and audio while doing the live stream, all that. All right, so far, 100% online. So I want you to think about your congregations, your mission, your vision, who you're called to serve. Don't so much segregate people in terms of people who are online and offline, or like our previous congregation and everyone else who may be online now. But people who were part of your congregation pre-pandemic and are now, many of them are digitally oriented. So as the pandemic shifted preferences, we all get used to doing Zoom and other things. your congregations, your members' preferences and attitudes have changed. We have to be mindful of that. So really given the tools of our time and the pressures and constraints of what's happening in the world right now, what are the possibilities? How do we gather? So first, when you think about people gathering, there are a number of different ways that we can gather. Now, you can have people gathering in small groups that are Zoom-based groups. People can gather offline. I've seen congregations where people are gathering, wearing their masks, following all safety protocols, in lawn chairs. Everyone's 6 feet apart. And so, as you start thinking about your ministry moving forward, so there are groups, we can organize groups in different ways. There can be groups that are 100% online. They are organized so that that's the only way they meet. We can have groups that are gathering online, but as they're inspired and able to, they may move into being physical gatherings in people's yards, in parks, out in the world, wherever, hiking, on your campus, outside. They could be, in your facility. So I think it's very important as you think about what's online versus what's offline and the hybrid. Small groups, whether it's a small group ministry group or some kind of program, you can design it such that here's this group of people. Oh, that's a good thing. And I talked about this a lot yesterday. It was all small groups yesterday. This group is it online or offline. It could be either. But the other thing, we can have groups that are these local groups, or I'm hearing from all kinds of congregations, and have for many months, that they have participants who are gathering for worship that are from all over the country. Oh, my Karen, it's minus 31 where you are. Oh, they're not meeting outside for a while. Oh, wait, let me see. Where is look at that, minus 31. Ooh. We can have groups that are local groups that can meet online or offline and are very flexible in terms of what they do, depending on health and safety protocol. So I love small group organizing for your congregation for that reason. But you have a person who is gathering with you from another part of the world, like they're doing worship with you. We can organize ministry for, I think, increasingly, like if you're, like we have the opportunity to say, all right, are we just a local congregation? Or if, say I'm your minister, if I'm not ordained, but let's just say, if people love my approach, my sermons, or I'm a very collaborative person, so the way I facilitate congregational life, is it conceivable that if we were intentional about it, that we could have a whole bunch of people who are worshiping from afar with us and participating in congregational life? We could very easily gather people who are full participants in our congregation, who gather in small groups, say small group ministry or other programming, participate in worship, but they are not local at all. All right, they're from all over the country. West Coast, East Coast, Canada, UK. Another thing we can do is, if we're organizing people in small groups and some of them are are scattered around the country, we might create all kinds of different small groups where we are a congregation with members from across the country, and we're helping members, say all the people tuning into my services who are in the Chicago area, get together in a small group. And so just start thinking about, like, are you a strictly local congregation, or are you going to be embracing more of this larger online ministry and the ability to serve people far and wide? One of the things that the internet does is it allows us to connect with people who we really have a strong affinity for. And so when the internet was first developing, people were like, oh, everyone's going to have access to the same information, and that's going to result in everything becoming more homogenized. Like, we're all going to have access to the same information, and therefore, it's like we're all exposed to everything, and everything just gets averaged out to the point where it's all uniform. What's happened? The exact opposite. People who love, you get, oh, it's too late, hold on. I'm on it. People who love talking about sci-fi and spirituality through the internet, they're finding themselves. People who love environmental issues or super passionate about environmental issues, what? They're finding each other online and are organizing. And so through the internet, what happens is people self-organize more around really like core values, passions. And so there's an opportunity, and that this gets into some denominational political issues depending on how your denomination is structured. There have been times previously, or I'd say the norm previously is, if your congregation is in a certain area, like you've got your turf, other congregations shouldn't mess with you, right? Like that's your local area. Got to be very careful collegially about stepping on each other's toes. The internet's like just blasted that out of the water. So I think we can have conversations as leaders, and should have conversations. How much are we committed to being local versus really figuring out who has an affinity for our worship, our style, our approach? If you have passion or as a community around certain justice issues, are there people who love that? Another thing that I want to pull to your or draw to your attention is there are congregations that are having real challenges right now, and I'm just looking at different research from like Barna and various church geeky outlets, which I'm tuned into. Like the numbers of congregations that are going to close this year and over the coming years is very significant. And so I think it's worth noting, if your congregation is struggling, that there are options besides just closing, and that we can do a lot more with multi-site church now and partnerships, so that you might have a congregation that was struggling, but you could partner with a congregation that is really dynamic, vital, is rocking their online ministry and offline ministry, integrating it together, and is able to really join with you, or you join with them, such that your congregation online, you're merging, participating in their congregational life online, and as we're able to, your facility serves as a second site. So I'm a lifelong Unitarian Universalist, so I know lots of you are as well. We don't talk too much about multi-site church, but I think now, as we have all these tools, very easy for us to think about, all right, we could partner with that church, or they could partner with us. We can share our services. We can bring people into small groups, and with Zoom and everything else, so easy. Next, not all ministers are equipped to do all this online business, right? You know that. I'm talking to colleagues who are like, you know what, I feel like retiring. I think there's huge potential for co-ministries right now, where some congregations where there's a minister, or some ministers who are really suited for leading online, for doing live streaming, to facilitating life online in the way that I think we have the potential now. That sort of minister can partner with another minister who's like, hey, I love doing the offline gathering, pastoral care, and organizing the physical aspect of our ministry together, and maybe even more, a bigger team. I think that you could then take your ministries really far, because the stronger your online ministry is now, the more that's going to lead to people who want to gather locally. Figure, in my mind, and this is not based on data, but just my kind of like inclination, I think it's kind of good to think about, all right, the average congregation, maybe 20% of their congregation is going to be gathering locally, and 80% is going to be online, like 100% online. So if you have a thriving online ministry, of all the people who are engaging with your community, there's a certain percentage that'll be local, like wanting to gather locally. Now, that 80-20 rule, the ratio, what's that based on? For me, it's based on people are increasingly digital. People are able to participate from far and wide. We have all this experience worshiping remotely. And I just think that you're always going to be accumulating a number of people who are checking you out, experiencing your congregation online. And it's like a funnel. Like you have this bigger group of people online, and a certain number of them are going to end up wanting to gather with you, like physically. So those congregations where you're like, all right, we're just going to focus on the people who want to gather with us locally in the building, I think that's problematic. So just try and have a mindset of dealing with both. Now, as you're looking to bring your congregation more into your building, I think this is where we need to start experimenting and playing. Always listen to your public health officials, listen to your Faucis. But I think one of the most important things we can do is think about how are we designing worship and other experiences such that we're not just producing a show and pushing out a video stream for people online, and it's really an event for people in the sanctuary, say, or whatever event you're doing, that we start looking at what are events that are perfectly suited for being online. Like there's no need, like this committee meeting, there's no reason why we should bother trying to gather. I was looking at a question. Nancy, I'll get to your question in a second. If I don't reply to your question, hit the alarm. No, I'll come back to it. There's some events, committees, like, why would you try and gather to do a committee work right now? I know many, many committees are like, we're going to do this online from now on. It's just easier. Then there are events where, like, all right, it really makes sense. Like, we can't accomplish what this program or ministry is about without gathering physically. But then there are things where, like, especially with some aspects of worship, where it's like, how do we design this so that it meets the needs of people online and offline, and we're not just trying to share the broadcast, but as worship leaders, we're really taking into consideration the design that this is an experience that is true hybrid. It's like this one approach, so that if you're broadcasting, you're leading worship from your sanctuary, you have the sufficient cameras and screens for your leaders and teams so that you can be leading worship fully for those present as able to gather safely. And you're able to interact with those online. And with our technology now, I've led retreats where we use different tools where people are doing voting and sharing feedback, responding with a word or a thought based on a reflection question using their smartphones. And that's fed into a website where we then project on the screen a word cloud. And there's just really exciting things. I mentioned a little bit about yesterday. That we can start designing and experimenting and playing with worship where we're not just going back to the way things were, but we're like, all right, we have people equally online and offline here in our sanctuary, and we can be creative about how do we weave those together. Now, what are the best approaches to doing like hybrid worship where, what's the scenario? I think we have to be very, before we get to like, okay, we are looking to do X, Y, and Z from our sanctuary and integrate, the people who are online this way and build community that way. There's a lot we have to figure out. I kind of feel like some of these conversations are leading us towards conversations that we have to hold off a little bit. But there's some questions about what is the best way to accomplish your work and ministry with the tools of our time right now? Is it, and I think so we have to get a little bit creative. Now I want to get back I don't want to lose that question. Please, questions, like what are your burning questions about hybrid right now? Part of this is going to lead to future conversations. And I also want to do some more bringing other people in together to have conversations. All right, Nancy asks, how do you ID those who are online and don't comment? So I think one of the things that we need to do is work to bring, as we have people online. Now, whether you're doing worship 100% online or doing some kind of hybrid approach where you're leading worship from your sanctuary or some other space, there's some people gathering physically and people online. We need to make sure that we're bringing our hospitality and greeting functions online. And I think this is very important, that we're leading by example. So if we're asking people to share a response, say if I'm leading the service and I'm gonna ask you to share a response to a question, I'm gonna have a team of people who is our online, like they're like our welcome team, they're like our social media champions, whatever, however we want to label them. I have at least 10, like this is what I would do. I'd have at least 10 people for every worship service that I have committed to comment, spark conversation, and model the most engaged responses. So that as we are asking people to do things, when I say, in a comment, share such and such, and it's not like crickets, it's like, people respond. Now, so that modeling helps others, I think, engage and feel safe commenting themselves because they see more response. It kind of says, like, all right, people are sharing these kind of responses and those, and I fit right in. That helps. Some people do want to be anonymous, right? I mean, that's just the nature of people connecting with us online. Some people don't want to make themselves that public. So I think one of the things we have to work on is through our offerings, through the way we promote newcomer events, engage people and invite them into small group and other opportunities, that we're really making it as easy as possible for people to say yes to this event, yes to that event. Maybe they're not going to comment on this one question in a chat, on a social media post within Zoom, wherever it is. But if we're able to in a very compelling way say, all right, we're having a gathering where we're exploring this topic, which say you're a person who hasn't commented is passionate about, and you really share a fantastic invitation and explain why you're offering that program, and make that. I mean, there's a certain amount of sales involved, right? But we have to really share, like, what's the value of these events? Why is it important? And make sure that people. Well, I said this at the very start, that we have leaders online who show up on video, like going live, maybe doing a little interactive Q&A with people where they're talking about issues and making more entryways for people to be like, oh, that person who's leading this upcoming program, I watched the little live stream promo about it, and they seem great, so I'm going to go. All right, let's look at some other questions. I just want to make sure I hit some of the key points that I wanted. Now, I did not in this session say, here is the template for how you do hybrid church worship services. That, this is something where we have to start getting creative and collaborative with our congregation, members, friends, and really explore, like, what are we called to, it's like getting back to mission and vision. What are we called to do? What's the purpose of our community in this time? Like, what's our mission? Why do we exist? What are we excited about? Where's the energy? Some congregations, as you have those conversations, you may discover that you have whole teams of people who are like, you know what? We want to do this amazing outreach and online service forever. In addition to whatever traditional worship service you have, we want to do a spirituality and such podcast. The more we can open up the conversation in a way that invites creativity and innovation, I think the better off our congregations are going to be. Let me just see what else here. How to address online people tending to smaller donations than those in person. Oh, some of these questions, I don't want to wrap up this session just due to the time. John, I'm going to think on that. Let me just share this question was ideas on how to address online people tending to smaller donations than those in person. How do you get people online to pledge? Well, I think we have to make sure that we are engaging people in congregational life online in such a way that it is relational, people feel connected, and if you have people online who are all they're doing is watching a worship service that you're publishing via YouTube Premiere once a week, and they never have any interaction with anyone in the congregation face to face, like via Zoom or other video platforms, if they're not actually having conversations, well, come pledge time, they're not going to be, it's not so much, people online versus offline. It's like, who are the people who you have successfully brought together in community, in small groups, for various reasons, but you've helped them share their story, make friends, make connections, dig into issues of meaning and purpose, your congregation's mission, engage in leadership development, mentoring. You've helped them connect in fun and fellowship opportunities. So that's like, you ask this person, like, online, offline, like, our congregation is jamming. We need to be aiming for that level of relationship, connection, and programming that, whether it's done digitally through, Zoom and other platforms, or doing it offline, that we're moving people into the heart of congregational life. When we say our congregation is doing X, Y, and Z, they're like, yes, we are. Like, can you move someone from I'm watching online to we are doing this? It's when people get to the we point, that's where they pledge. And I'll just say that getting people online in small groups to talk about the congregation as part of your Canvas efforts, very good, very good. All right, so with that, I'm going to wrap up this session. I mentioned before, next week starts up my next cycle of Video Ministry Academy, so I'll be focusing on that. If you are interested in joining, just go to videoministryacademy.com. That's all about using short video or just online video messages, going live, recording simple messages using your webcam, smartphone, etc., to engage with people online, support your ministry online. So videoministryacademy.com if you're curious about that. Then once we get into that a bit, next trainings for me, more small group ministry and online small group training, and then more online live sessions like this. Continuing the hybrid conversation, innovation conversation, reimagining our ministry conversation. So if you have specific topics that you want to continue talking about, you can go to my website, peterbowden.live. There's a question box at the top, or you can contact me, email me. And it's those of you watching right now, you're part of my core live stream audience and training community. Your questions, needs, interests are what really drive my work and set the agenda for all the live, public, free strategy sessions I do. So be in touch. Have a great weekend, and I'll talk to you all soon, okay? Takes me a second. Wait, I'm just going to color here. I got to finish this. And where's Juliana? Great to see you again. I should have done my coloring before. Yesterday, I brought out the easel pad for the first time. Getting a little analog, right? Like, I could be doing some digital titles, but this is fun. You guys all still here? What's going on? You want to watch me draw? Wait, the views are going up. People care more about my drawing than what I have to say about hybrid church. Is that it? Right. All right. Here's a little frowny. Wait a second. Is he cartooning? That's right. All right. Any other final questions? 16. Oh, one thing I've learned through my career live streaming so far, people stay on as long as I'm on. So like, I've had this experience where I'm like, all right, that's it. And I'm waving and waiting for people to go. And it's like 30 people, 28, then it lingers. I'm like, oh, I have to actually say goodbye and click end in order for everyone to say goodbye. So to you, goodbye. Thank you for all you do. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for being here in the spirit of learning, collaboration, bringing new ideas and energy to your congregation. I'm cheerleading you, all you do. Challenging times. I'm trying to have your back. If there's anything you need from me or way I can be of support, whether it's through things that I'm doing like live on YouTube, Facebook, etc., other trainings, reach out. Reach out. I'm like one of the most accessible people, but yeah, I'm here. I'm just gonna wait. Goodbye. Ta-ta. Need anything? Contact me. I'll talk to you soon. All right, let me end this. Ta-ta. Hi.